Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to lesson 9 in the Bishop B5 course. Now, normally these videos are only available to channel members, but I've decided to make this lesson available to everyone just so you can all see what these lessons are like, and if that's something you're interested in, this is kind of like a sneak preview. So in this video, we're actually going to be looking at the E6 lines where black plays E6 immediately. Now, previously in the course, we've talked about knight C6, and then we've kind of covered all the common replies, so E6, D6, G6. We looked at queen c7, queen b6, knight d4, knight a5, and then we also looked at after d6, bishop b5 check, bishop d7, and knight d7, and then knight c6 kind of transposes to the other lines. We've talked about all those, but today we're going to talk about e6, and this is kind of a move that as a bishop b5 Sicilian player I don't really like to see, because it might mean that I'm not going to be able to play bishop b5 at all. And we'll get into that more in just a second, but that's what we're covering in this video. Let's get to it. Okay, so when black plays e6 immediately on move 2, we kind of have a problem if we're going to continue with our bishop b5 plan, because if we play bishop b5 now, black just plays a6, and if we try to just retreat, well then our bishop gets trapped, and this is not how you want to start the game. So we can't really play bishop b5. So what I like to do is play the move knight to c3. Now, knight to c3 is kind of like a waiting move in a sense, because sometimes black will play knight c6, and then guess what? Well, we'll just play bishop b5, and we transpose into some of the other bishop b5 lines that we've already looked at. We just have these moves kind of thrown in, which is totally fine. But sometimes black doesn't do that, and they play a6. Now, a6, you can say goodbye to any ideas of playing bishop b5. It's just not going to happen, right? Like, not anytime soon. So we have to have a new plan, and that's what I'm going to go over in this video. How do we approach this position? This setup, usually it's called the Sicilian con, plays e6, a6, and then usually the queen goes on c7. Now, for the longest time, as a bishop b5 Sicilian player, this would throw me for a loop, because I'm just so used to playing bishop b5, castling right away, and I'm like, okay, what do I even do here? And a big problem that I had is like what to do with this bishop, right? Because it's not normal for me. But over the years, I figured out a system, and I'm going to show you what to play that I think is very good for white. So we're going to play d4, and this is just the main line. Usually black captures. We're going to take back with the knight, and then like I said, the most common move is queen to c7. So what black has done is prevented, our knight from attacking the queen, because those squares are covered. And then you can see the queen's kind of controlling this file and controlling this diagonal here. The move that I recommend you play is somewhat uncommon. The most common moves are like bishop d3, bishop e2, or bishop e3. I recommend you play the move g3. And there's a very important reason for playing this. So a couple things. Number one, a lot of times, not right away, but later on in the game, black can play bishop d6 and create a very annoying threat here on h2. Also, sometimes they play knight f6, knight g4, and if you try to kick it away, they play h5, and when you castle over here, you can get into big trouble over here on h2. Trust me, I know it's happened to me many times. But when I play the move g3, guess what? None of that stuff even matters anymore. There's no more. It would be pointless for black to play here, because they're just hitting this like brick wall, right? There's nothing for black to do along this diagonal anymore. The same thing, the knight idea doesn't really do anything because the queen's already blocked off. So that's why I like it, for one reason. Also, a lot of times black plays b5, bishop b7, and this bishop is very annoying. Like if you just put your bishop on e2 or d3, at least I always feel like this black bishop is much more effective. Well, when we put it on g2, we're directly countering black's bishop, and so that's another thing that I like about g3. And then also, like I said, it's not the most common move, so you have surprise value. Most players playing black, when I play g3, kind of pause for a little while because they're not used to seeing this move. Now, the most common way for black to continue here is either bishop b4 or knight f6 and then bishop b4 after. So this bishop b4 idea is very common to put pressure on the knight, because the queen's already there, and it's just kind of an annoying target for us to deal with. But I'm going to show you some really cool responses to how we deal with this. So let's start with if black plays bishop b4 immediately. So what I recommend you do is actually just play bishop to g2 and let black capture here. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, hold on a second, takes, aren't we just getting forked? And the answer is yes, we are, and that's totally fine. So here's what you can do. Play queen to d2. Now, first of all, you know, if black takes this, which most people aren't going to do this because they're going to take the rook, but if black takes this, you just take back with the bishop, and essentially we've sacrificed one pawn to have 3 pieces ahead in development, right? We can castle, we can start attacking black's weaknesses, so rooks can go to open files. There's lots of annoying things that we can do with this bishop along these dark squares, depending on, these dark squares, depending on what black's going to do. So this is totally fine. Now, most people aren't even going to do that. So let's go back. Most people are going to take this rook in the corner. And now what you can do is play the move c3. And c3 is essentially starting to trap the queen. If you notice, all these squares are covered by our queen. This is defended, this is defended. Where's this queen going to go? There's only one place. Now, they could ignore it, but most people start to get worried that their queen's going to get trapped, because it is if they don't do something. We're going to castle and move our bishop out, and then it is going to be completely trapped. So most people play queen to b1. And now we play knight to b3. And again, the queen doesn't have a lot of options, right? Everything is kind of defended here. This is defended, it's blocked off. This square is taken, the queen can't even move. So that's the first part of our plan. Now, most players for black in this position play the move knight to f6. And the point is they're attacking this pawn and trying to like capture and get their queen out of there, right? So what we're gonna do is just castle and let black take the pawn. And now we have a killer move, queen to d4. And essentially we're saying, you know, if black wants to escape with their queen now, go ahead. And watch what happens if they go that route. So queen takes a2. We're going to play queen takes g7, right? So we're not worried about this because we're creating a bigger threat on the rook here. And after rook to f8, we play the killer move, knight to c5, which at first glance is like, what are we doing? We're just giving away the knight for free. Let me explain what's going on here. The point is, after black captures, we play bishop to h6, and that rook is a goner. Black has no way to defend it, and it can't move anywhere. We just take it with the queen. So if we go back, the reason knight c5 was such a good move is because if we play bishop h6 immediately, black has queen a3 and defends the rook. So that was the whole idea behind this clever knight to c5 move. I mean, we're attacking the knight, but also once it gets captured, then bishop h6 works. So that's what's going on there, and this is a great position for white. Stockfish says we're up 8 points, so almost being up a queen, and you can see why. I mean, black's pieces are like terrible. King is coming under attack. There's no way to really deal with it. d5, queen takes check, king d7, and then something like c4 is what Stockfish recommends. Queen takes c4, rook c1, and you can play around with this position if you like in Stockfish, but it's totally winning for white. There's all kinds of good moves. So we don't need to go any further there. So let's go back. Right here, when we play queen to d4, we just saw what happens after queen takes a2. Very, very bad news for black. So the other move, which has been played a few times, is knight to f6. But now what we can do is play bishop to a3. And essentially, by playing knight to f6, black said, okay, I'm going to abandon my queen and just try to deal with what's going on with my king here. So bishop a3 almost traps the queen. It has queen a2, but we're going to let that happen and then play queen to d6. And check it out. We have this checkmate threat here, which really black can't deal with. Knight c6, and we just capture it, and then there's nothing to defend this. The other move, knight to d5, which defends it again, we just take it with the bishop. So the only thing that black can really do is sacrifice their queen for the bishop, and then we just take it. And so we have a rook, a knight, bishop, rook, knight, bishop, and so basically we have a queen for a rook and a knight and a couple pawns. But a bonus is that our king is totally safe. We are completely developed, and black is not. And black cannot castle because of this. So you add all those things together, much better position for white. So if we go back, let's just kind of recap how that happened. Basically, right from here, we set the trap. So we play bishop g2, we let black capture this, right? And the point is we're giving them this fork because at the end of that, the queen's gonna end up getting trapped in the corner. We're gonna have a huge lead in development, and we either trap the queen or we end up going for the king and getting an attack. So that's a really cool line to know. Now, I want to go back. The other move, instead of bishop b4, that players make is knight to f6. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to play bishop g2. And then bishop b4 comes. And again, we're going to do the same thing and kind of do the same sort of trap. Now, it's a little bit different because the moves knight f6 and castles kind of change things up. But the same idea. And the idea is takes, takes, takes. And again, we're going to sacrifice this rook. So this is the second time when we're just giving away the rook for aggressive counterplay on black's king. And so we're going to play the move e5. Now, there's two ways that black can approach this. Number one, and the most common, is that they will just take the rook. The other way would be to move the knight somewhere. Now, the knight doesn't have a lot of options anyway. Like, all of these squares are controlled. Bishop, queen. So there's knight d5 maybe, and knight to g8 that black could try. But we'll come back to those because the most common move is queen takes a1. So let's look at that first. So queen takes a1, and we're going to take the knight, first of all. And black is already basically lost at this position. Most players capture, and basically we have a bishop for a rook, so we're only down in exchange. But our king is perfectly safe, and black's king is about to get destroyed. So the move that we play now is kind of hard to see if you didn't know this line, but knight to f5. And what we're doing is saying, all right, we're going to hop in here and just destroy everything. Or here, maybe, and really get to the king if black doesn't take us. So black kind of has to take the knight, except they can't take the knight, because if they do take the knight, watch what happens. Rook to e1 check. After king to f8, we have bishop to h6 check, king to g8, and that is checkmate. So that's definitely not what black wants to do. And if they run this way, we've got bishop to e3 setting up to go here. So check this out. If black takes our queen, that's also checkmate. Is that not cool? So black would have to do, let's see, what's the best move? Queen to e5 is the best move, but there's actually mate in 11 for us. So bishop e6 is the start of the mate. King moves, we end up taking the queen, and like I said, there's forced to mate after that. So it's absolutely terrible for black if they take the knight. So the other moves that people have tried are queen to e5, but then we've got knight to d6 check. So like I said, that was the kind of the point. We wanted to hop in there. King goes over, and then we can take here with this fork on the king and the queen. So other moves for black, king to f8. And then we've got bishop to f4, so we're just developing with tempo. Queen moves somewhere. We move the knight, and we're attacking the queen, also setting up for the bishop to come in. And this is just nasty. Let's see. Yeah, knight takes f6 we have, and it's mate in 6 now. Let's see. After you take the queen, yeah, there's mate in 5 from here. So I hope you can just see like how crazy good this is for us if black accepts this rook. So this is definitely the line that I recommend that you play. I know this probably seems like a lot to remember. Don't worry, there's gonna be a link in the description below with the study that I made for this. You can just click on that and go through all these lines. So don't worry about having to remember everything. It'll just be there for you. And the last thing that I want to talk about, so we kind of already talked about knight f6 and then bishop b4 and then what happens here. Some people don't do the bishop b4 plan. It's very common. It's the most common plan, but not everybody will go for it. Some people will just do something like d6 and, you know, b5, bishop b7, kind of just play it a little bit more safe. If they do that, that's totally fine. You can just kind of continue doing your normal thing, develop the bishop, castle. You can slide the rook over, bishop e3. You're kind of just playing normal chess here. And like I said in the beginning, you have the bonus that most players as black will be out of their comfort zone because this setup is somewhat more rare. So that's what I recommend you play against e6. And for those of you who are interested in joining as a channel member to get access to all the other lessons, I'll put a link down in the description below, or you can just click on that big join button next to the subscribe button, I think is where it's normally at. And that'll kind of take you there. Make sure you choose checkmaters or grandmasters in training. Both of those levels have access to these videos if you're interested. But as always, thanks for watching. Stay sharp, play smart, take care.